As it was mentioned, I grew up in not just an amusement park, but a Soviet amusement park, which was headed by my father. At that time, he was considering normal kindergartens as rather communist indoctrination camps. And actually, before, the park became sort of my surrogate kindergarten, and its employees, cashiers, ride operators, engineers, were my nannies. Growing up in this park, I constantly found myself involved in all kinds of activities related to park development, from redecoration to engineering. And actually, this unique experience paved the way to my career. I took over my father's position. I became a CEO of this Soviet amusement park. And later, I embarked on PhD with an aim to redesign the very definition of amusement park. But it is only quite recent that I realized I actually never liked to ride the rides. Rather wonder about these peculiar phenomena. Well, my disinterest in submitting my body to this fanfare machinery lies in the fact that I'm kind of motion sickness prone. The rides make me sweat, shout, and vomit. So in this specific paradoxical relationship with amusement park made me be very intimately related to the park, but at the same time retain a substantial or critical distance to the park. I was always wondering, something very powerful lying in the park, something lurking super powerful. For example, I would say it's the only existing hybrid narrative form which engages its public through all the possible channels, psychologically, symbolically, bodily, and so on and so on. And this unique experience actually made me, at the same time, to wonder that something is lacking in the park. I would say that it's quite superficial, and it's the stencil of innovation. And if you look into the history of amusement park progress, you would see it has been driven by intense experiences. And I would say this is exactly the point where amusement park development is the stencil of innovation. Amusement park ride designers are complaining that the body has reached the peak of stimulation intensity. I was empathizing with these designers, knowing that it's the end of amusement park. It's the death of amusement park. So I wanted to celebrate this point in the history. When I came up with an idea to design the ultimate ride, a roller coaster which kills its riders pleasantly and elegantly, because I guess it was provoked by the idea of killing people with amusement ride. So actually, we can call it Euthanasia Coaster, which means a pleasant death coaster. It's a very simple device. It consists of two parts, a drop tower, a tall tower, and a funny part, which kills you. So you are towed up to the top, 500 meters. You have a substantial amount of time to reflect upon your life and decision. Once you're on the top, you have the very last moment to say your last words and say yes or no. Okay, you say yes. You go down. You achieve around 400 kilometers per hour. You need such a speed to finish the fatal part of the coaster. And once you enter the first vertical loop, because of the curve, you are exposed to such an extreme centripetal acceleration. You are pushed against the seat so much that your whole blood is rushed towards lower extremities, so no blood or little blood is left in your brain, and your brain starts to suffocate. And because of a lack of oxygen in your brain, you feel a series of weird experiences, like tunnel vision, gray out, and all kind of stuff. But what is most important, that you are euphoric. You're so euphoric, and just few moments, and you pass out. And then your limb body, unconscious body, is being ridden the last part of the coaster, and your brain just dies of suffocation. That's it. What is this coaster is nothing but a falling trajectory, curved and tangled in the air in such a way that it would leave nobody apathetic, neither the rider, neither the public. But where this trajectory leads to, it's up to you, to the public, to decide. It could be considered as a prop for non-existing horror movie. It could be a gravitational weapon. It could be a mourning sculpture. It could be anything you like. And once it was presented to the public, it got such enormous amount of feedback from the public and from media that I had to spend 2 hours a day for a year just to respond. The content and form of the feedback ranged from knee-jerk jokes to very extreme expert discussions. Tattoo, a novel, dedicated songs. For example, this one. It's a Norwegian rock band which dedicated this song to the coaster, which sounds a little bit like an ad in a non-distant future, inviting the public to come to the park and commit a suicide. A British filmmaker, Glenn Patton, made this short-length movie based on the coaster, in which a terminally ill protagonist, Mark, uses his wealth to build the coaster. In one of the MoMA's exhibition in the Museum of Modern Art in New York, one terminal patient told that death could be considered not something as a tragedy, but something that could be a personal. And it's the coaster which invites you to redefine the very contemporary understanding, what is death. One science fiction critic made a tattoo on his bicep, but in such a way that when you stretch a bicep, the drop tower, the tallest tower, becomes taller. What these anecdotal stories tell, that they range from religious, ethical, technological, cultural perspectives, it is nothing but that the coaster is real and it's riding people, millions of them, of course without killing them. Once I was developing this project with space neurologists, people who work with astronauts and cosmonauts, we were joking in the lab that actually if you use a milder version of a coaster, you can use it as a sex machine. And what we're actually referring to, it was so-called erotic asphyxiation. What is erotic asphyxiation is basically an intentional restriction of oxygen supply to the brain to arouse sexual responses. Those who practice that, they say that there is no drug as the combination of orgasm and euphoria produced by suffocation of your brain. It's super powerful. And what is quite interesting, that it's very popular. Every day one person dies of this, because of they strangle themselves until they die and so on. There are many other issues that actually make this practice very dangerous. So I was perplexed by the fact that it's so popular and yet very dangerous. I took this joke by the scientists very seriously and started to look for safer means of this practice. And we came to an idea to use a centrifuge-based machine. It's still being developed. It's a premiere here of this project. And it is basically a disc with 8 capsules on it. Let's call it these capsules as love capsules, love spheres, where you find yourself being spun around its axis. And in the capsule, the lovers have control over the distance between the axis and the capsule. And by changing the distance, you can control that centripetal acceleration, which pushes you against the against the wall. So what it does, you can try different kind of planetary gravitations. You may have a sex in Jupiter gravity, for example, if you would be in the middle of a track. So you can have different positions that would be impossible on Earth. But most importantly, you can control the flow of the blood. You can pump in, pump out in this part of the body. Or also can control that there is no blood at all in this part, so you would be very euphoric. And at the same time, euphoric in other part. Yet, it's still dangerous, because any lack of oxygen in your brain, it just kills the brain cells. So this project is not built to be built, but to be fantasized about. Why I'm designing these projects? By designing these projects, by designing the coaster and the sex machine, I want you, the public, to ride the rides without, of course, dying or having dangerous sex. But at the same time, I want you to have as genuine experience as possible. It's something like Alfred Hitchcock did with his movie Psycho. You know, this movie known for this murder scene in a shower. After the premiere of this movie, the sales of shower curtains just dropped rapidly. And I think it's possible only in fiction. And I think why not to have fiction in design and engineering? Much like in cinema and literature. You know, cinema and literature are constrained by its infrastructure, the paper, the screen, and other stuff, while design can use any means of narrative or creative expression. Food, electronics, acting, air, electromagnetic waves, anything. Even life itself, probably. And if such design fiction prevailed, I can imagine it would have enormous impact upon cultural and technological development. As I demonstrated with these projects, they function in some kind of creative zone of extreme freedom, where most radical ideas could be tested out safely, quickly, economically, and most importantly, democratically. With a means of, for example, internet or any kind of public forum, it's up to you to decide. You can evaluate. You are empowered with a vote and power to evaluate whether you want such technologies like Euthanasia Coaster or sex machine before they are being built. So the shaping of the future is accessible to everyone.